This story time is how I caught my uncle filling on my cousin, in other terms, his daughter. So when I was 11, my cousin was throwing a party, then afterwards a sleepover. By the way, we're calling her Adrian, and she was turning 13. So the day of the party, me and my other sister were dropped off by my dad, and we were dropped off very early, maybe 5 hours before the party, and that's because he had to go to work, and my uncle didn't mind taking us all together to the party. Plus, we got to help him set up for the party. When we arrived, we went to Adrian's room, and she got her hair done. It looked so good. When we were talking to her, she just seemed so sad. And you know, when you're younger, you can tell when things are off. She seemed bratty, and she would say that she hated her mom and her dad. To me, I'm like, why? She has the perfect life. Fast forward, she throws the party, and when it's all over, we go back to her house for the slumber party. We ate snacks, played games, watched movies till we fell asleep. I'm a light sleeper, and when everyone was asleep, my uncle came in the living room, tapped on Adrian's shoulder, and told her she gotta go to sleep in her bed tonight. Let me know if I should. This is part 2 of how I caught my uncle touching on my cousin, in other terms, his daughter. So early before, I told you guys everyone went to sleep. We were all asleep in the living room floor in front of the TV, and my uncle tapped on Adrian, telling her that she needed to sleep in her bed tonight. I'm a light sleeper, and I was woke the whole time. Adrian was still asleep, so my uncle picked her up and took her to her room. I was confused on why she had to go to sleep in her room because everyone was asleep downstairs. So 15 minutes passed. I'm still waiting there bored. I don't know what came to me, but I was just curious to see if Adrian was up. I mean, she might have been because I would have woke up if I was switched to a new room. I don't know. I just went up. When I got upstairs, I opened the door. Adrian was asleep, but she was completely naked, and my uncle was sitting right next to her, touching on her. I'm out of time. Let me know if I should make a part 3. This is part 3 of how I caught my uncle touching on my cousin, in other terms, his daughter. Like I said, I couldn't sleep, so I went upstairs to see if Adrian was up. When I opened up the door, Adrian was asleep, but she was naked, and my uncle was touching on her. I got scared and was about to run downstairs, but he ran after me, covered up my mouth, and sat me back down in the room. I started crying, and he said if I didn't shut up, he was going to beat me, so I shut right up. In the midst of it all, when he was standing up, I didn't notice before, but he had on no pants. I started sniffling, and the noise I was making had woke Adrian up. She looked at me, then looked at herself and saw that she had on no clothes. She jumped back and immediately wrapped herself up in a blanket. I started crying again, and my uncle said, "If you don't shut up, girl, I'm going to smack you." Then Adrian yelled at him and said, "Don't hurt her." And immediately he popped her and said, "What I tell you about talking back?" And from there, Adrian just sat there frozen, touching her face, and I shut right up. This story time is from a follower, and she really needs advice. By the way, her name is Aubrey. So as a kid growing up, Aubrey's biological father and mother were not together, but her father would pick her and her half-brother up for a few hours on a weekend and then bring them back to their moms. One day, he completely stopped picking them up. There were no calls, no messages. It was like he completely disappeared. Her and her brother weren't too sure on why. But years later, when she got older, come to find out her father was in jail for 10 years and she never knew. And I'm guessing she was told this by a family member, but her mom didn't allow her to see her father. Over time, her brother was allowed to see her father, but she was not. And it was only because his mom allowed it, but hers didn't. To this day, she's still not allowed to see him, and I guess it's because her mom doesn't trust him, but she really needs advice because she doesn't know what to do or say to convince her mom that she deserves to see her father. So comment down below advice because she really needs it. This is part 3 of how I caught my uncle touching on my cousin, in other terms, his daughter. And I had to remake this because TikTok took down my video that I made yesterday. Like I said yesterday, I couldn't sleep, so I went upstairs to see if Adrian was up. When I opened the door, Adrian was asleep, but she was naked and my uncle was on her. I got scared and was about to run downstairs, but he ran after me and set me back down in the room. I started crying, and he said if I didn't shut up, he was going to do something to me, so I shut right up. In the midst of it all, he was standing up, and I didn't notice before, but he had on no pants. I started sniffling, and the noise I was making had woke Adrian up. She looked at me and looked and saw that she had on no clothes. She jumped back and wrapped herself up in a blanket. I started crying again, and my uncle said if I don't shut up, he was going to do something bad to me. And Adrian yelled and said, "Don't touch her." And immediately, my uncle popped her and said, "What I tell you about talking back?" And from there, Adrian just sat there frozen, touching her face, and I shut right up. It gets bad after this. Let me know if you guys want a part 4. This is part 4. I caught my uncle touching my cousin, in other terms, his daughter. So, after my uncle popped Adrian, she got real quiet. Then out of nowhere, she started burst out crying. My uncle was trying to tell her to be quiet, but she just got louder. I don't know what it was, but as soon as I saw her crying, I started crying too. Immediately, Adrian's mom busted in the room asking what's going on. My uncle was trying to convince her that everything was okay. She grabbed Adrian and saw that she was naked. Adrian's mom started to get upset. At this point, everyone was waking up. She took both me and Adrian out of the room and yelled at my uncle, telling him to throw his clothes on and go. We went to the bathroom and she asked us questions. I told her what I saw, and Adrian told her everything, even things I didn't even heard about. It seemed like her mom had speculations that this was all going on, and her mom started crying. Towards the end, I really don't know what they did afterwards. I told my dad, and from there, me and my sister was never allowed over my cousin's house, and I haven't seen her in 8 years. This story time is about how my best friend almost got kidnapped. By the way, we're calling her Aaliyah. So back in the summer, Aaliyah was talking to a guy she met through Instagram, and she was talking to him for about 2 months, but they never actually met up. Aaliyah really liked him, and they planned a day when and where they go out to meet. The guy she was talking to asked if she wanted to come over to his house to chill. By the way, we're calling him Isaiah. And he wasn't far, so Aaliyah came to me and asked if I wanted to come with her. And I couldn't have her go alone if she was nervous, so I told her I'd go. So the day come, and we go around 7, 8 o'clock. When we get to Isaiah's house, he welcomes us in, and when we walked into the living room, there were like 20 guys all around his house. We're so confused because Isaiah never mentioned that there would be other company. We sat down on his couch and everything was fine. We played games with everyone, which was pretty chill, until one of Isaiah's friends sat next to me and rubbed on my leg and asked me to come upstairs with him and another guy. It gets really crazy after this. Let me know if you guys want a part 2. This is part 2 of how my best friend almost got us kidnapped. So after we get to Isaiah's house, there's like 20 guys walking around his place. We start playing games, and I say after 2 hours, one of Isaiah's friends sit next to me and rubbed my legs and asked me to come upstairs with him and another guy. I immediately push him and told him to stop touching me. He gets up and grits me up like I'm some sort of rag doll, saying I disrespected him. And my body just reacted, so I slapped him in the face. My friend Aaliyah gets up and kicks him and tells him to get away. He got mad and walked away and told other guys in the room that we were weird. I was so mad, and I told Aaliyah I was ready to go and that everyone is acting sus. She says okay, so Aaliyah walks to Isaiah and she tells him we're about to go. He asks her for what, and she explains that I feel uncomfortable. He laughs and says that we're not going anywhere and that him and his boys were getting laid tonight. Y'all let me know if y'all want a part 3. This is part 3 of how my best friend almost got us kidnapped. So Aaliyah tells Isaiah that we're ready to go, and he basically said that we can't leave and that him and his friends were getting laid tonight. Aaliyah says, well, you better call up some hoes because we're leaving. So we gathered up our things and tried to walk out, and Isaiah yanked Aaliyah's leg, and when she fell, Isaiah jumped on top of her saying that we can't go anywhere, and all the guys start crowding around us. So I kicked Isaiah in the head and pulled Aaliyah up to go, and she's like, run. So we're running, and a couple of guys start chasing after us. One of them were really fast and catches up to us. He picks me up and starts taking me back to Isaiah's house, and I'm sitting there punching and kicking and screaming. That's all the time I have. Let me know if you guys want a part 4. This story time is how I found out my toxic ex-best friend pretended to be a guy so she could date me. In other words, I was catfished. So back in February when the coronavirus first started out, everyone had to stay home. My best friend at the time, which we're calling Tina, older brother, had caught the virus, and I felt bad for the family because they could also be infected. Me, on the other hand, I live with my older sister who recently had my niece and my 2 grandparents. I told Tina the only way we'd be able to talk was through phone and call and text messages, because I was afraid that she would infect me and I would infect my family. As weeks go by, she tells me that she misses me, and of course I miss her also. At one point, she starts to get jealous because I start texting other people, and from there, I started to distance myself, but not purposely. One day, I got a DM from this really cute guy, which we're calling Bryson. He came up with a corny line, but I thought it was cute. He was really nice, and we talked as though we knew each other for years. As the number of cases of coronavirus go down, I tell him we should go on a date. Guys, this is when it gets weird. This is part 2 of how I found out my toxic ex-best friend pretended to be a guy so she could date me. So after we talked for about 4 months, I tell him that we should go out and finally meet face to face. He's like, I don't know yet. If I go somewhere, I like to take you somewhere really nice, so I might have to save up. I was like, we don't need to do anything fancy. I just want to finally meet you. He's like, I need more time. So I was patient and waited a whole month. I told him, let's meet. He's like, I'm not ready yet. And I said, if we don't go out this weekend, then I'm done talking to you. So he finally agreed to go to the movie theater comparative with me. When we finally meet, I was so surprised because he was short. I expected him to be taller by now. His pictures looked like he was taller. He had a black hoodie on and his face was partially covered up. I was like, "Are you good?" His voice was raspy. He says he lost his voice. When the movie was over, we got up and left the theater. When it was time to leave, we gave hugs and he kissed me. As he's hugging me, I feel breaths. It gets really weird after this. Part 3 will be up soon. This is part 3 of how I found out my toxic best friend pretended to be a guy so she could date me. So after the movie was over, we stepped outside and I said goodbye. He hugs and kisses me and I immediately feel breasts. I'm like, what the? And it pushes him away and his hoodie flew off. Well, her hoodie fell off. I found out that this guy was my best friend, Tina. I'm like, what the hell, Tina? Why are you here? She's like, I'm so sorry. I asked her again, why are you here? She then explains to me that she pretended to be the guy I was talking to because she wanted to get closer to me. I was freaked out because I thought I was talking to someone else this whole time for 5 months. I got so wrapped up over this guy that didn't even exist and told things to that I never told anyone. But then I got so disgusted because I couldn't believe my own best friend would do that. And I feel like if we never met, I probably would still be talking to this fake man. At the end, I completely blocked her and stopped being her friend.